All right, let's see here. In CG, that's what we're going over. See if I need to do a recap. Where we left off, dynamic subdivisions went over, live Boolean system we went over, barrel rifling we went over, text creation Z plugin. We can start there. Let me see if I can load up an example file. Hey, thanks for showing up. Get cracking. Let's see. We're in streaming mode. No, we are in pistol mode. Streaming models where we left off. Let's see if we've got a gun sitting in here. Gun high res. Dynamesh. Let's try this one. So, like always, I'm going to hit the comma key to get rid of that light box here. And we'll drag off a model where we kind of left off here. Go to perspective mode. So if I turn on this live Boolean, you're going to see here's all the live Booleans that we have set up, and here's the base model of the gun. We did change the handle eventually. I didn't really like that kind of blocky handle there, so I do change that. We're going to talk about text and punching in text. I think right here is where we ended up putting that text. Let me find a render real quick. Where's the best place for me to find a render? You know what? I'll just eyeball it. Oh, you know what? I've got a magazine right in front of me with it on there. By the way, if you're new to this, or to this live stream, what we've been doing for the past couple weeks, on Thursday mornings when I do this, we're going over NCG Magazine issue number 32. I've got an article in there on the making of this weapon, and we're just doing a video companion for that. Okay, yeah, so we've got here's the gun, and it's a made in ZBrush. Made in ZBrush stamp. So we'll go ahead and make that, and we'll maybe have a little bit more fun too. We'll talk about deformers. I can read YouTube messages when I use Restream.io. So here's Restream. So I get, I think I'm getting 3 or 4 streams right now. If you have any questions, just shout them out. I can't promise I'll get to all of them. I might have to leave a little bit early this morning, but I can put that in my streaming topics. We can cover it some other time. But if it's relevant to what I'm doing, I'll try and keep my eyeball over there just so I can stay fresh. But anyway, so we're going to put a little stamp over here, and we're going to put made in ZBrush on there, and we'll do a couple different ways to stamp that on there. We've already talked about live Booleans. Just a refresher, let's go out of edit mode. Let's hit Control N. Oh, you know what? Hold on. I need to remap my Wacom here. I need it over my ZBrush window. And down. And up. Something like that. Okay. Okay. There we go. So, for example, live Booleans. Let's bring in something a little more interesting. I hit the comma key here. We're going to go into Tool, and let's go ahead and grab the dog. Drag that out on our canvas, go into Edit mode, and now we've got a dog here. So if we go to Subtool, Append, and we'll do a helix. So I've got a helix and a dog. If I make this helix subtractive over here, and I turn on live Boolean, that'll go ahead and make that helix a live Boolean. So I can move either of these, and that'll go ahead and Boolean those out. I can also make this insert an intersection, so that'll be the intersection of those two values, or I can just do additive. But if you do subtractive here, you can of course continue to add or sculpt on the dog and move this thing around, and these are just live Booleans, so they're really quick to add stuff to. You can also go to like brush, insert, I can insert multi-mesh Boolean here. You can hit the M key, or you can just kind of scroll up here. So if I hit the M key and I grab this one, for example, and I pull this on, you're going to see it automatically live Booleans out. If I hit X key to go across X symmetry here, which is under Transform, Activate Symmetry, it'll be on both sides. And again, I can just move this thing around as needed. I can also drag off a copy here, so I can do Control Drag, and that'll just drag off a copy. You can kind of position this a little bit better. There we go. Rotate this around. If I don't like this one and I want to change it, all I got to do is hit W, and then we can just cycle through these, and then I'll cycle through all the different versions that we have of our brush up here. So let's say, oh, okay, I want that one. So I'll hit Q to go back into my brush mode. So if I hit W, that goes into gizmo mode. WER is just the gizmo mode. If you're in transpose mode, if you hit Y, that's going to be in transpose mode, and then you're going to want to hit W, E, and R to go into move, scale, and rotate. But while you're in gizmo, move is fine. To hop back into using brushes, just hit Q. That'll be my draw mode here. So we got all that. So let's say I want to make this light Boolean. First of all, if you wanted this result to be a little bit smoother, what you can do is go to the dog, hit D for our dynamic subdivisions. That's just turning on geometry dynamic subdiv. You're also going to want to do that, see how it's kind of faceted on the helix and stuff like that. Go to your subtractive meshes here and also hit D, and then I'll go ahead and smooth those results out. And now I can go down here to our subtool, Boolean, dynamic subdiv turned on because we're using it, make Boolean mesh. And that'll go ahead and give us a U mesh, and this is real geometry here. And again, this maintains all of our polygroups, all of our actual geometry, so you can use that to your advantage later when it comes to remeshing or rebuilding or adding more geometry or Z modeling after the fact. So that's our Boolean mesh here. Good morning, everybody. Thanks for showing up. So that's a quick overview of the live Boolean system that we'll be using as we move forward. So, and here's a block out of our gun. It says like, oh, you know what? Sorry, let me get rid of this Camtasia. There we go. So now what we're going to do is we're going to do a little bit of text. This will be an easy one. I think we're coming towards the end here, but I'm going to basically, if I go into solo mode, I'm going to Alt tap this one, and I'll hit Alt R. So let's say we want to put some text. Where did I put it? Yeah, right about here. Let's put some text right in here that says made in ZBrush, and we'll put a little round thing around it. You know, like whenever you Glock 19 or whatever, they have like a little cutout section with a little text in it. We're going to do that. So, hey Christian, thanks for showing up. Let's get cracking. So, okay, we'll go ahead. So I have a hotkey assigned to live Boolean. You see it's Alt R, so I can just really quickly just toggle in and out of Alt R. If I ever want to see, like if I have these live Booleans selected here, what's a good example? Let's go to this one up here. So when I hit Alt R, you're going to see this subtool disappears. Well, if I want to manipulate it, well, if I go into gizmo mode, I can kind of see how much this is going to cut in, and if I want it to be thicker or thinner, I can just do that. But if I want to make more changes than that, go into polyframe here, and you'll be able to see your object. So in this case, you could go in there and use like Z model or insert single edge loop. So you could go like insert single edge loop, and then again, I'm just hovering over an edge, hitting space bar. We're going to go to bevel edge loop complete. We'll pull this out, and then we can do like Q mesh polygroup all. Now I can just pull this out, and that will go ahead. If I go out of polyframe mode, you're going to see that's the changes that we're getting. So if I go back into polyframe mode here, we can scale this up or scale it more down, just holding down shift while we pull. There we go. So we're kind of making those new weirdo shapes like this. You can also go into solo mode. So if I'm in polyframe mode, I can see it, but if I also just go into solo mode here, that'll go ahead and show you the entire object. And in this instance, that's fine. So that's the result we're getting with the live Boolean. So let's, okay, enough sidetrack. Let's go ahead and start talking about text. So the text we want to say is going to be made in ZBrush, made in on one line, ZBrush on another line. So let's figure out how we can do that. So I'm going to go ahead and hop out of live Boolean mode. I'm going to hit Alt R. By the way, if you want to set your own hotkeys, just hold down Control Alt and tap almost anything in the ZBrush interface, and you can assign a hotkey to it. There are some rare examples where that wouldn't work as well as you'd like, but almost every button in here, you can just hover over it, hold down Control Alt, tap this button, and then it'll say, what hotkey do you want? Then just do your key combination to assign your hotkey. Same thing for brushes. You can just go in here, hold down, let's see, like planar, Control Alt, tap, then it'll say press any key combination. I'm going to hit Alt O, and now it's a custom hotkey assigned successfully. So now I'm in the standard brush. If I hit Alt O, it's going to go to planar. If you want more, so if you're going to see me using a lot of hotkeys and also using my custom menu here. If you want that, I can go ahead and link you guys. So go to my Gumroad page, go to my Cube Brush page. That'll have all my hotkeys and all my custom menus there. So feel free to use those if you want. Or there's even better. Go to my YouTube channel. Let me go to my playlist here. Go to the Intro to ZBrush Part 2, and that'll walk you through making your own custom menu and making your own custom hotkeys. And that'll be better for you because it's going to be more for your workflow. My workflow may not be the best for you. Let me change my filter here real quick. I swear I have two giant monitors sitting in front of me, so that changes the lighting. Oh man. And now my head's going to start disappearing. All right, well, let's deal with that. So, sorry about that. All right, so let's talk about text. Let's go out of edit mode. Let's hit Control N, and we'll just grab that polymesh star. We'll go into edit mode here. So we have a menu docked over here. If you double click these dividers down, ZBrush 4R8P2, that'll open and close them. But I'm going to take this left one here. The brush menu is in there. I can just go ahead and get rid of that just by clicking that little white circle. And I'm going to take the Z plugin and just drag that on over here. So with this, let's go to the text 3D and vector shapes. Incidentally, if you go to that YouTube link I sent out, we have the ZBrush to KeyShot bridge. You can also use this. You're going to see there is an SVG option here. So this is how, let me see if I've got it. If you go to modeling the logo here, we basically brought in an SVG file. So here we are doing text, and then here we are, we brought in the logo, and then we kind of cleaned it up using Booleans and stuff. So that's another option for you. So if you don't have the font or you have an SVG file of their asset, then you can just create that. But we're just going to use text. I mean, I guess I can bring that in if you want to talk about SVGs. I just don't have a lot of SVGs on file, although let's do this. SVG logos. There's a cool website I used. Not GitHub, flat icon, SVG, SVG porn, simple icons. Okay, and I'll try this. Go to simpleicons.org and let's just pick one. Let's see if we've got one that's relevant. Okay, I'm going to grab this YouTube one here. So I'm going to click it. You're going to see it's down. Oh, hold on. You're going to see it's downloading youtube.svg. So what we can do is we can do some text. We can also do an SVG. Let's start with the SVG first. So I'm going to say new SVG. I'm going to go to my downloads page, and we'll go ahead and grab our YouTube SVG. So now what we have is we have our polymesh star. We don't need that anymore. I'm going to select it, hit delete, and now we've got our SVG here. And now with this one, let's see if we can go into the extrusion. We can do, will it change the resolution? Yeah, so you can change the resolution, the extrusion. You can add a bevel to it. And on that bevel, if you change the resolution of that bevel, same thing for text, that'll give you a little more resolution. Let's go ahead and change that bevel, really bevel it up. And you're going to see right along here, we have a bevel resolution of 4, so 1, 2, 3, 4. And if we go into curvature here, we can curve it out and make it kind of, it'll bubble out there. We can also go to a negative curvature here and bubble it in. If you want more control over that, you can go, you know what, bevel of 0, or no, wait, you want a bevel of a high bevel, but no bevel or resolution. And that'll go ahead and gray out your curvature. And then what you can do, because it's giving you an edge loop, you can go in here and you go to insert multiple edge loops, turn on interactive elevation, and then you can just manually go in here and you can like bevel this out or drag in and bevel it in and then add your own resolution for whatever you want. So if you want to bevel it out a lot or a little bit, or just, you know, just a subtle bevel and you only want like 1 or 2, you can quickly go in and do that. Once you've done that, in order to get that bevel perfectly on the other side, just go ahead and just tap on that edge, and then I'll go ahead and bevel it out and maintain the same properties that you just dialed in. So there you go, SVGs. If we want to add text, we can do that, I think, with any polymesh object. So we can go back to our polymesh star, or we can just leave it here. It's just going to append the text. So if we go here to new text, we're going to type made, oops, caps lock and it kicked me out. Type made in, you know what, let's just do made in ZBrush, and we can move that down. So now we have our logo here. If we don't need this anymore, we can just get delete, and now we have made in ZBrush, and it inherited the properties that we just dialed in. So let's go ahead and change this bevel here. I do want a bevel, but maybe not a super strong one. And let's go ahead and say the bevel resolution of 3, and we'll say the curvature of maybe 0.3. There we go. So if you turn off our polyframe here, here's our text. Let's look at a few more options. We have adaptive turned on. If I turn that off, that's going to give me more evenly divided geometry. You know, if you want less polygons maintaining the same shape, you can do adaptive on. If you turn it off, you'll get more polygons, but it might be easier to manipulate if you want to dive in and start sculpting on it or Z-modeling it. It'll give you more geometry to kind of work with. So, you know what, I guess I'll leave that on. It's not like I'm really worried about resources within ZBrush. It can handle multi-billions of polygons, no problem. So I think we're in good shape. So we've got our text here, and we've got made in ZBrush. The only problem is I want made in to be on the top line and then ZBrush to be on the bottom line. Not a huge deal. We can change that. I mean, one easy way to change it is to hold down Control. And in ZBrush 4R8, if you hold down Control, if you don't have anything masked, hold down Control, hold down Alt, and that'll go ahead and mask everything else and unmask that. Then we just use our gizmo and just pop that underneath. Before we do that, let's go over here and say, you know what, I want to edit this text. You can go and edit this text. You say made in ZBrush. You can go ahead and edit your text. If you're like, you know what, I don't want to do that. And it's not a big deal. We can actually get rid of that text too by just deleting hidden. But so that's where you can edit your text here. What else we got? Oh, you can change the font. You can click on here and you can go through and you can crash ZBrush. Maybe. Let's see if it saves it. You should be able to change your font. You can also click through these little left and right arrows. You can click through the fonts and kind of see how they're going to look. My computer just yelled at me. I'm not sure what I did. Oh, if you turn this auto update on, it'll go ahead and update the text here. If you go to replace, it'll replace this text. When you type in new text, it'll replace the subtool as opposed to appending a subtool. You can do vertical text. It'll go up and down your screen. You can do reverse text. It'll type it backwards. So a lot of flexibility in here. Looks like I'm going to have to kill ZBrush. End task, please. Let's try this again. How's everybody doing? Hey, Craig, thanks for showing up. Ben City said, where did you download this plugin? The plugin should be downloaded for you. The text plugin anyways, if that's what you're talking about. Where did it go? There it is. It should come with ZBrush. If for some reason it's not loading, you can download it manually. I'll show you where that is in just a second. And also where some other cool plugins are. So if we go to, let's go to ZBrush plugins, Pixelogic Download Center, and we're going to go to ZBrush plugins. These are all the plugins that come built into ZBrush here, and if you keep scrolling down, you're going to see an employee created plugin section. There's some really cool stuff in here. I think Joseph Dress does the most of these. But Nano Tile Textures, Panel Loop Presets, Clean Tool Master I use, Z Repeated I use, IMM Extractor I don't use, but that could be interesting if you're making your own libraries and stuff. And then Matcap Baker, a lot of people want to know about that. So you can use Matcap Baker to get matcaps baked on the textures for you. So, all that. Let's see. Okay, recovered that tool. Oh, okay. That file got corrupted. Uh-oh. Not a big deal. You saw how easy it was just to make text. So, we'll make our text real quick. I'm not sure why Arial was giving it trouble. Might be something with my machine. Yeah. All right. Sorry about that, guys. We'll get reset back up. Okay, real quick. Oh, you can also see on our Pixelogic channel here. Go and load this up. We did a lot of modeling. We did we did a bunch of, let me see, let's go to streaming. Yoshi, the bullet box here. Yeah, so we did a little bullet guy here. We did the question box mesh. We did the star thing. So we were doing a bunch of Mario modeling here. So, and that is under my Pixelogic page. So if I go to, let me go back one here. There is my Pixelogic live stream. I do that on Tuesday mornings. I think I'm going to have to miss next Tuesday. I'll look at my schedule, but you can watch that. All right. Okay, let's just go back here and let's turn off Camtasia. Everybody can see what I'm doing. All right, so back into the text thing, kill the brush, Z plugin, drag that over, text 3D, new text, Whenever I hit caps lock, it wants to kick me out of here. I don't know why. Made in ZBrush. That'll work. You can also go in here, if any of these fonts have different types of, regular, bold, italic, you can just select it from down here. Apparently Noto Sans doesn't, so I'm just going to leave it alone. Go to Subtool here. Let's hit delete. And also, just so you can see, we can do vertical text, we can do reverse text. So all those options are for you. I wonder if you could also change the kerning. That would be cool. Doesn't look like it, but so I've got this here. Let's go ahead and just add a little more extrusion, add a little bevel resolution, and add a little curvature. There we go, back where we started. So now if we're happy with this, we can go ahead and position this text how we want. So I'm going to hold down Control, again Control, and then Alt and drag over that ZBrush here, and we can move this down. If you want these to be in separate subtools at this point, you could just go to your split unmask points or split mask points, and that'll split your mask points into another location. Actually, before we do that, I forgot. Let's go over here, turn off adaptive, and also, man, I'm having all sorts of trouble with this text. Let's see. That's really weird. Okay, let's roll the dice here. Okay, adaptive. Interesting. Now let's go back to, sorry, a little bit of troubleshooting. Oh, that's bizarre. Okay, well, whatever. We'll pick something else. That's fine. What's Dayton? No, that's not going to work. Wait for it. I don't remember having this much problems with text back when I was doing my, oh, by the way, if you want to see what's new with ZBrush 4.8, I'm not doing anything we haven't gone over before. So again, if you go to this playlist channel here, there's an Intro to ZBrush 4.8, what's new, and that'll walk you through all of this stuff too as well. Do you think you can make a tutorial on workflow including texturing XYZ, Substance Painter, and ZBrush? Yeah, eventually maybe. Let's see, man, I'm having a ton of problems with ZBrush this morning. Fine, you know what? You go away. I'd have to brush up on that. I was watching some Paragon videos, and they were getting really good results without going crazy on, because I've done faces before in games and doing the whole, putting the nose pores where the nose pores need to go, and all the craziness of making a perfect face and getting it in game, and it looks okay. But it also, apparently, you can just tile pores from a back and just dial in some settings and it looks just fine. So that's kind of where I'm more at these days. But I'd have to brush up on Texture XYZ. I don't even think I have it downloaded here at the house. So I'd have to do that. All right, we're going to try this one more time. Okay, comma key, drag out a star, mat cap. Let's open up this side here. Let's kill Camtasia Recorder. Let's go to Z plugin. Let's go to Text 3D, new text. I wonder if it's because I have my caps lock key on. Maybe that's throwing it for a loop. Caps lock off. Yeah, it's not even letting me. Okay. Don't use your caps lock key. Good to know. Interesting. Now I just want to try this adaptive off. Yeah, it's really killing that. And now I'm wondering if I don't have all these things installed for some reason. Now I'm afraid to choose Arial. I just want something. You know what? We'll live with this. So I'm going to go to Subtool here. We're going to go to this Poly Mesh Star. We're going to delete that. And I'm going to turn on polyframe so I can see what I'm doing. And again, we'll do, let's see, a little more resolution. We'll go to little bevel res, little curvature. This will be the text that we want to punch out. You know what, that bevel's a little strong. Let's bevel that a little less. There we go. So, made in ZBrush. Let's go ahead and mask this, and then we'll drag it underneath. And if I want to change the spacing in between made and in, that's again just Control Alt drag W. I can hit this, hold down Alt and go to center unmasked, center to unmasked mask. We can pull this in. Now this is getting a little bit tight, so we can just move that over. And if we want to, we can also go to the center of this unmasked mesh, and we can scale this up just a little bit if we want to even this out. We don't have to. You could also change the spacing in between all these, but that might not be ideal. So we've got our text in here anyways. And instead of going in here to the extrusion, what I can do is I can just go in here and I can scale this out. But as I'm scaling this out, you're going to see my bevel is getting wider. So what I can also do is hold down Control Alt and then W and just pull these out. That'll make it more extruded and keep my bevel the same. So we've got this made in ZBrush, and now we need to load up our pistol here. Let's see. Let's see. Yeah, I'll start here. So the next thing we need to do is punch in a little area where this text is going to go on our weapon. So already we've got this set up with a bunch of live booleans in it, which we went over earlier, but I want to go ahead and punch in something right here. So I'm going to Alt tap this subtool here. I'm going to go into my custom, this is just a bunch of primitives in here. So I got a sphere 16, sphere 12, sphere 8. We've got a ring. We've got a cylinder that's pointed towards me this way. We've got 8, 12, 16, and 32 cylinder here. I like 8, 12, 16, 24, and 32 because, for example, if I go in here and grab a cylinder 12 and I just pull this out of my mesh, and then I go do, if I do split mask points, it's going to split this, it's going to split these mask points below my subtool, but because I want this to be a subtractive mesh, I'm going to do split unmask points. That's going to put that underneath, and now you're going to see, it made its own start group, but I'm going to go ahead and select this one here, and now this is underneath. I can make it subtractive, and I have live boolean turned on, so if I just push this back in to the object, it's already going to start subtracting out. Weird thing that's happening on this thing is, see how it's all faceted? It's smooth but faceted. That's because this object right here has QGrid turned on, dynamic QGrid, which we've talked about this before too. I can give you a quick overview on that. But what I want to do for this barrel is under my dynamic properties, and all the split stuff we were talking about is under subtool split. All the dynamic stuff we're going to be talking about is under geometry dynamic subdiv. But for this one, we want to turn QGrid off. And if I go into solo mode, you're going to see what we're doing. So here is dynamic turned off. Here it is turned on. And right now it's just doing a smooth subdivision. So if we take this down to like smooth subdivision of 3, you'll see it's a little bit more faceted. If we go down to 1, it's just giving you a preview of what it would look like if we hit Control D or hit this divide key. So if I go up to like smooth subdiv of 3, and if we want to go ahead and crease these edges, a lot of different ways we can do that. We go down here to crease. You can manually go in here with your Z modeler brush, hover over an edge, and then do like crease edge loop complete, and you can just crease these. You can also go down here to the crease tolerance here, drop that down, hit crease, and that'll go ahead and crease based on the normal angle threshold. So if we go out of polyframe mode, you can see this is what the example or the result we're getting. Now, if you want to give a slight little relaxation on these edges so they're not quite so harsh, what you can do is underneath dynamic, you've got crease, and you got a crease level. So we've got a smooth subdiv of 3. If I change that crease level to 2, and then do Shift D to go out of dynamic mode, and then D to go back in, you're going to see that kind of backs off a little bit. So we can go to like smooth subdiv of 5, crease level of 4, and that'll just go ahead and make this a little bit tighter. But I like the smooth subdiv of 3, crease level of 2. And what I can do now is I can go ahead and tighten up these edges a little bit. So I'm going to go in here, I'm going to go to Insert Single Edge Loop, and I'm just going to pull an edge in there to just kind of tighten those transitions up just a bit. And basically what it's doing is subdividing up twice to my crease level and keeping those edges creased, and then it's uncreasing all and then doing another smooth. All on the fly, it's real time, but it's just a preview. So I can change these settings and still go back to my normal mesh here and still add, like I can Q mesh this stuff out, and I can hit D, and it will just keep those same settings here. And if I want to, now I can just do my crease again, crease tolerance, and now I'm getting that kind of look with the beveled edges here. So if we want to, we can go like smooth subdiv of 4, crease level of 3. There we go. And it just builds it in. And if you don't like this, you can go through here and we just Q mesh this back. Of course, it's keeping our creases on there. So if we want to, we can go in here to crease edge, and we can hold down Alt and we can uncrease these edges here. There we go. And let's see, we can also Q mesh. So Q mesh is cool. We've gone through Q mesh a bunch. So now in this case, what I'm going to do is I'm just going to do uncrease all in our crease menu, and then I'll just do our crease tolerance here. And now we're back where we started. And we can hit Control W, make that all one polygroup. Anyway, long story short, that's how you make a cylinder. So we have our live Boolean turned on. If I turn that off, you're going to see our cylinder sitting in here. It's sitting within the start group of this object here. So we've got a start group, and then we've got all these subtractive meshes underneath it that are subtracting these shapes out. And when I go into live Boolean mode, you're going to see those shapes are now being subtracted out of that mesh. So if we Alt tap this one here, this is one we're manipulating. So let's go ahead and scale this down. You're going to see my gizmo is just off to the side. Hold down Alt, go to Unmask Mesh Center, and then hold down Alt, and then go to Reset Orientation. So now we're back where we right in the middle of that object. If I start scaling this now, it's going to scale. If I go into solo mode here, you're going to see it's going to scale towards the middle of the world and then away from the world. In order to not do that, turn on LSim. That's going to do local symmetry, and now you'll be able to see it just scale locally on its own axis here. So that way we can go ahead and scale this down, move it up, and we'll say, okay, that's about the size that I want this to be drawn on there. So if I go into solo mode now in the polyframe, hold down Control and Alt, hit W and hold down Control. Let's do Shift D so you can see the actual geometry here. So again, I'm holding down Control. Well, I'm unmasking half of this. I'm holding down Control and I'm just pulling this out, and that's going to add an edge loop for me. It'll just add, and you can hold down Control and just keep pulling this out, and it'll just keep adding more and more and more. So that's transpose modeling. You can do a little bit more fancy stuff with a transpose line, and to get that, just hit Y, and that'll toggle from transpose to gizmo. But we're just using the gizmo now just to pull out a simple edge ring here. So we've got this here, so we can hold down Control and then drag to unmask that. If we hit D, we still have our dynamic subdivisions. We need to do a little bit of cleanup here. Just really quickly, I'm just going to grab that crease tolerance and go and increase that. If I go out of solo mode, out of polyframe mode, it's already cut in. A couple things I want to change about it though. Number one, it kind of curves up and then it kind of bows out while it's averaging those vertices and then bows back in. So to fix that, also looks like it's got a little bit of a weird issue. And you can also, you know, in order to get these things to just average correctly, sometimes it's useful if we go in here, for example, we go to Inset Flat Island Region. You can just kind of inset an edge loop here to kind of make sure those vertices average correctly. So now when you hit D, it should be a cleaner result all the way around. Now, if it's too tight, we can go right back into our dynamic settings and say crease level of 2 and turn it back on. There we go. Kind of loosen those edges up. But to fix this issue here, what we can do, two things we can do. We can try creasing this whole side. Here's another easy way to crease. We can hold down Control Shift, grab all these polygons here, and any open edges you have, if you hit crease, it'll go ahead and crease any open edges. So really quickly, you can just crease those. And now when we hit D, it'll keep those edges creased, and now it goes curves around, stops, and then continues to curve. If you don't want it, or if you want to control that a little bit more, what you can do is Control Z, Control Z. You can go in here, hover over an edge, go to Insert, Single Edge Loop, and you just pull along that surface there. And now you can kind of dial in exactly how tight you want those transitions to be. So, oops. And also, if you don't want Dynamesh turned on, just go to your Dynamesh settings and turn that off so when you control drag, it doesn't accidentally Dynamesh your object. So that's one change I wanted to make. Another change I wanted to make is getting a bevel. As this pushes in, I want it to kind of push in, but see how that transition is really sharp. We can fix this later on the union mesh, maybe, but I'm going to go ahead and fix it while we're in here. So let's go into solo mode. I'm going to do that. I'm going to do Shift D, and we'll go out of solo mode here, and we'll turn off live Boolean. So basically what it's doing is it's pushing this object into this object here. Now this is a little overkill as far as the bevel, because really I'm not using 90% of this object. I'm just using a little bit of it. But what I'm going to do is I'm going to go to Insert, Single Edge Loop. Here, I'm going to hover over this edge. We're going to go to Polyloop, Polygroup. I'm going to tap Alt just to make sure I get a new subtool here. And you know what? Let's go ahead and just tap all of these, because what I'm going to do now is, you know what, I need to do this. I need breathing space on this bevel. So what I'm going to do is hold down Alt, poly loop this one and tap Alt. So I'm going to do Q mesh, polygroup all. I'm going to start Q meshing these. Whoops. Q mesh, polygroup all. I'm going to start Q meshing these, but I'm going to hold down Shift. And what that's going to do is just pull along that surface normal. So I'm building in a bevel right here. So as I push this in, it's going to start beveling out. Now what I'm going to do, if I hit D, you're going to see it's a very smooth transition. I want to crease those. So what I can do really quickly is just go into the crease menu, do crease PG, and then I'll go ahead and crease my polygroups here. So now you see that's the shape I'm getting. And now when I start pushing this in, if I go back into my live Boolean mode and I push this in, you're going to see as I push in, it's going to start beveling out a little bit. So I just wanted to put a little bevel in there. If you do want it harsher, you can go in back into your dynamic settings. We got smooth subdiv of 3. Let's do crease level of 3. There we go. So now we're getting a little bit of a tighter bevel along there. Problem is, as we're pushing this in, it's like, okay, now we're going to get a bevel, but that bevel, it's like it's really deep and the bevel's happening here. So all I got to do is go through here and just change this transition here. Just move these in. So now it'll bevel in, it'll push in just a little bit and then immediately start beveling here. So now that we've done that, unmask that. So now we can push in just a little bit and then it'll start beveling. So you can dictate how deep you want that to go. And in fact, even if that's too much, let's just continue to make that transition smaller there. There you go. So now we can push in, add a little bevel, and we're off to the races. And now we can just position this a little bit better. And say hereabouts. Cool. Everybody good? Hey, thanks for showing up. This is ZBrush. And if you wanted to see ZBrush and Painter in the same tutorial, go to my YouTube playlist here. And we got the live stream full episodes for my Thursdays. If you go to live stream highlights and you scroll all the way down, as you're scrolling down, you're going to see, I mean, we go over a little bit Sketchfab, Painter to Sketchfab stuff. Go and open that link. And also down here with these robots, we go from ZBrush, like high-res Mat ID and export, and then we go to key shot rendering, and then we go to iRay rendering. In fact, for this demo, what I did for this gun, you know, let's go ahead and load up Painter. I can show you guys, because we can do that too. On this live stream, we'll take it from ZBrush to Painter if we have enough time. I mean, if we don't have enough time, I'll just do it next week. Like I said, oh boy, hold on just a second. Sure, and I have a license file. Downloads. Sorry, hold on. Yay. Oh. My license file is too old. Okay. Oh boy. Give me a minute. That's weird. Let's say login. Login. Licenses. Substance Painter. Okay, Substance Painter, Windows. Shoot, hold on, sorry. Give me a second. I'm downloading a newer version of Painter, and I'm also making sure my license file works. There we go. Sorry about that, guys. Interesting. And now it's way over to the right. And I can't get it on my window. Oh boy. Man, I am just full of problems today. All right. We've got Substance Painter here. Let me just go ahead and move this into place so we can see what we're doing here. And why? Okay, I was playing with Substance Painter when I was doing my monitor setups, and I think that's what threw it out of whack. All right, good enough. Let's go to File. Let's go to View, Reset UI. There we go. File, Open. And we'll go to our pistol here. Painter, handgun. I know. So we'll let that load up. I'll go back. Oh, there we go. And we're just going to go to our 3D view only. And let's see what display settings we've got turned on. Viewer settings. Yeah, okay. So we did take this into Painter. So, and this is straight from ZBrush, and it was just auto UV'd, baked maps in Painter, and all that good stuff. So we'll go ahead and do that as well with this presentation. So let me go ahead and, now that this is all set up, let me kill Painter here. And hopefully that'll keep my settings there. Hey John, thanks for showing up. Yeah, we will do texturing in Painter, hopefully today if we get time. Yeah, I try not to have too many problems when I'm live, but boy, I don't really get to control that. Wish I could. So, okay, so we've got our little divot here. If we go back, we've got our text here. To make this text easier to place, like I can append this and move it around and scale it down, but what I'm going to do is just hit, I get kills Camtasia here. I'm going to instead hit B, create insert mesh, new, and you can also go into, we grab the brush menu here, just click this little white thing and just drag it over. You can go here, we can do create insert mesh in there as well. What we did was we just created an insert mesh brush that now I can go back to our weapon that we're working on. And then with this little space in here, we have the barrel support selected. That'll work. So I'm going to go ahead and just drag our text on here. Now we're going to be not going to be able to see it because we have live boolean turned on, and it's just, if we turn off live boolean, you're going to see, if we go to solo mode here, it's just masking and dragging on our text right on that object here. So what I'm going to do instead is keep live boolean off, and we'll just drag our text out. And it's also, whenever you drag an insert mesh brush onto an object, it inherits the properties of the previous mesh. So what it's doing right now is, it's why it's being so slow, is it's dynamically subdividing as I drag that out. So if I do Shift D, that'll turn off dynamic subdivide. It'll still inherit those properties, but it'll allow me to kind of drag out a little bit faster. So, and you can also hold down Shift as you're dragging out, and that'll kind of constrain it to the left and the right. Let's do Shift D again. There you go. So we've got our text on there. I'm going to go ahead and again, under your subtool split menu, I'm going to use my custom menu here. You can go to split to unmask points. It's going to put it below here. It's going to make it subtractive. So now if I do D to turn dynamic back on, and then I select my text here, it's already subtractive because it was split from a subtractive mesh. If I hit D here, it's going to inherit the dynamic properties from our original mesh here. If I don't want that, I'll just do Shift D, and then I'll go ahead and turn that off. And then if I turn my live boolean render back on, you're going to see if I keep pushing this in, it's going to start subtracting that text from our object here. So in order to get this placed, I'm again going to go back here. We have LSIM turned on, so we can turn on live symmetry. We do have one problem. On this side, we had X turned on, so under transform, activate symmetry, it's doing it across the X-axis because it's a symmetrical object. But we have made in ZBrush, and then we have Niem Diamterbridge. So we're going to have to go ahead and split this off and rotate it around and mirror it. Not a big deal, but I'll show you how to do that when we get there. So first of all, let's position this text. So we're just going to go ahead and scale this down, make sure it's positioned somewhere in there. And now 2 considerations. Number 1, do you want this pushed in? If you want it pushed in, you're fine. If you want it to actually be bumped out, you're going to want to hit this additive. So now it's going to, it's order of operations. You've got the barrel support here, which is this area, this big block right here. You've got the little cutout here, and now you've got your text. So it's going here, it's subtracting this out, and then it's adding this. And then if you want it to be bumped out, then you just put a little bumped out text in here, and now it is bumped out text. So I'm going to go ahead and make this additive. Trying to think what else we needed to do. I think that'll work for what we want. And then, oh yeah, we were going to make this so that the text is fine. So I'm going to go into solo mode here so we can see it. This side on the right, I don't want. If I could, I guess, a couple different ways I could do this. Let me go and get rid of this. What I can do is I can delete this side, duplicate this one, rotate it around, and then mirror it over. But I should be able to if I just turn off X symmetry. If I don't turn off X symmetry and I mask, it's going to mask both sides. I just want to mask one side, so I'm going to tap X to toggle off transform X symmetry. Mask this one side, Control tap to invert that, or in ZBrush 4.8, Control drag, hold down Alt, and that'll mask everything except for what you had unmasked. Hit E to go into, or W to go into move mode. Hold down Alt. Let's go to unmask mesh center. Snap to the top. Hold down Alt and reset this if you need to. And now you can just hold down Shift and rotate this 180 degrees. So now that we've got this made in ZBrush correct on both sides, we can go out of solo mode here. And now you're going to see. And again, we can on the fly just make this text subtractive if we want, or additive, or we can do an intersection as well, but that's not going to do you much good. So we'll go ahead and make that additive here. All right, there we go. So now when we go and make our union mesh, made in ZBrush will be, you know, stamped in on the circle part, stamped out on the text part, and we're in good shape here. Let's see. What's a hotkey to change light? Like the lighting system, it's under here. Like this light. Well, you're not going to see an update because this is matte cap, but if we go to basic material here, this light I don't necessarily have a hotkey for. I suppose you could hold down Control Alt and see if it'll make a hotkey for the light specifically, but I'm not sure if it will. That's one of those weird menu items that may or may not work, like the curve manipulator windows in there. Can you explain crease levels on different sets of edges in the same object? A couple edges level 3, a couple level 5. As far as I know, you can't do that. It's all or nothing on an edge or on an object. What I would probably do is build in bevel. So if I go out of live Boolean mode here, and then let's go out of edit mode, clear my canvas, Control N. Let's start with just polymesh object here, and we'll go to initialize, Q cube, deformation, unify. There we go. So now we've got an object here. So if I wanted to have more creasing on one edge and less creasing on another, I think I would probably have to do something like this. I would go to, like, say, crease this edge and this edge. We'll hit D to go into dynamic. And you know what? Let's just go do a crease tolerance here. So we'll go crease tolerance. Oops. There we go. And I'm going to hold down Alt. So we're going to crease edge, and I'm going to uncrease these edges. So let's say I want these all really tight crease, and I want this one not as tight, but I want to back these creases off just a bit. So I'm going to go into my dynamic crease level of, say, 3, smooth subdiv of 4. So I can dial in the creases I want along here. And then if I want this creased a certain way, I would just use control groups to be like, okay, I want this creased not quite as tight, but maybe like that. Let's do a crease level of 4, smooth subdiv of 5. I mean, it's not ideal. It would basically be, instead of using creases to do your hard surface, you would do control loops instead. Just dialing in edges where they need to go to, like, okay, I want really tight creases on this upper edge here. Let's go ahead and uncrease all. So hit D here. Let's say I want really tight creases on this edge and then really loose creases on this edge. We can hold down Alt, get rid of this one, and get rid of that one. So now when I hit D, you're gonna see this one's smooth and then this one's tighter. This isn't anything new, and in fact, if I want to tighten this up too, I can hold down Alt, and then we can do like inset polygroup all region and just pull this in. So we're basically just, let's do Shift D here. We're just pulling in an edge loop on this backside here, so it's even tighter. So wish I had a better answer, but yeah, the creases I think are just all or nothing on a single subtool. You can change it on separate subtools, but not pick which edges you want to do it. Problem the other day where I couldn't use Gizmo Transpose All tool on negative Boolean meshes. Let's try that. So we've got this object here. Let's go to BI brush insert Boolean meshes. And we'll put this in here. And we'll go ahead and do split on mass points. And we'll go make that subtractive. And for this object here, I'm just going to do Shift D so it goes a little faster here. Go into my live Boolean render. And then we can hold down Control, pop this one out. And we can also duplicate this, and we'll push this. Actually, you know what? Let's just go ahead and mirror that across the X. What axis are we on? Z axis here. There you go. If I want to change these ones, we can just cycle through. Oh, you know what? We need to move the pivot. There we go. So we can cycle through a different one here. Subtractive, and for this one we'll scale it down. Alright, so we've got multiple subtractive, and just for the heck of it, let's go ahead and make one more. We'll just duplicate this off, and then we'll rotate this around. We'll stick it back here. There we go. So we got multiple subtractive meshes with this one here, and just to play it safe, we'll make it a start group. And now if we hit, I mean, I would probably go out of live Boolean render to see what I'm doing, go into move multiple. If I hold down Control Shift and tap, that'll unmask, that'll make it so nothing moves. Then I can go through here individually and choose which ones I want to move. I can also do that opposite. I can hold down Control Shift and get rid of, just make this one movable, and then Control Tap to invert that. And now I should be able to move all of these at once. The only way I could see that not moving them all is if something was masked. So for example, if these, I mean, any one of these could just be masked, but if you don't have it selected, it's kind of hard to see that it's masked. And then when you go in here to move multiple here, those aren't going to move. So if some of them are masked, they might not move. Sorry for our topic. I wanted to know if your curve monitors does not disturb you on modeling hard surface or straight lines. Also, you think it's adequate Intuos medium versus large and big monitors. So when I'm streaming, I'm just streaming. Let me see if I got a picture of it here. I know I do. Let me grab it real quick. Here's my setup. So you're going to see while I'm streaming, I'm just capturing this 1920 by 1080 portion of my screen. Then I got my reference up around here. The curved monitors doesn't really bother me at all on the straight lines. I think because as I'm moving my head left and right, it's curving the monitor towards my eyeball in a even more straight than a straight monitor, because I'd have to like do my head like this to be, you know, orthographic with my screen. I haven't noticed anything, but you know, that could change. And also, whenever I model hard surface, I'm always out of perspective anyways, so I always assume that the lines I'm making are straight when I'm doing just hard surface stuff. If we're bending hard surface or doing organic modeling, I haven't noticed anything. The curve monitors don't seem to be affecting me that much. That I can tell. But if that changes, I'll let you know. Now I am using this Intuos medium right here, but since I'm only mapping it to this small portion of the screen, it's fine. If I was mapping it to this entire area here, which in fact I do have a picture of that. We had a little bit of fun. So here they are stacked, and here is Keyshot taking up this entire screen. So if I was modeling on this entire screen for some reason, probably a large would be much more resolution for the Wacom tablet, as well as transferring that to the screen here. But let's see if we go to, yeah, let's just stack monitors here. Here's this, now the side-by-side was really bad. Like it was cool for like editing. I could take a movie editing thing and drag it across both screens and have miles and miles of resolution for my timeline. But if I'm like modeling over on one monitor and like looking at reference on another, I literally had to turn my head. It was really bad for that. So that's why I ended up stacking them top to bottom. But I haven't noticed anything on the curve stuff. Yeah, and for ZModeler, I might use Teddy S or using any type of tablet or just raw mouse and keyboard. So you just saw the Wacom Intuos Medium I'm using. But if I'm doing ZModeler stuff, I don't mind using, if I do Shift D here, I can use my mouse and do that. But if I'm doing any sort of, let's say we go to like Bevel Edge Loop Complete here, and then we go to, you know what, let's do Bevel Edge Loop Complete, and then we'll do Insert Multiple Edge Loops. I'm going to turn off Interactive Elevation here, and we'll just type in some of these. And now we go to QMesh, Polygroup All. Let's pull these in here. And now when you hit D, we'll get that kind of look. So I use my mouse for that. So ZModeler stuff I'll use my mouse for occasionally, but I'll also use my tablet. But if you're doing any kind of sculpting, you're really going to want to use your tablet. Cool. Yeah, exactly. I'm not sure if there was a mask here, but Boolean, well, if we do Boolean on and we unmask this one, I want to believe we would still be able to move all these at the same time. All it's doing is just, this live Boolean is just a render trick, so it shouldn't affect like what subtools you can select. So I'm going to guess masking. Could be wrong though. It could be a support ticket thing or if it's just buggy. Cool. I don't know about hero, but I'll take it. So okay, we ended up with the text here. So let's see what else we got next. Make Boolean mesh. We got all our start groups in place. So in order to create the union mesh is, okay, let's do this. So we've got our brush here and we've got this weapon here. I'm going to go out of perspective mode. So we've got our weapon all ready to go. If I hit Alt R, that's my hotkey for live Boolean. Yours won't be, but you can change to whatever you want. It's like, okay, I'm liking what I see here. So all you got to do is go down here. We've done this before. Boolean, make that Boolean mesh. We do have dynamic subdivisions turned on for a lot of this stuff. So again, if I tap this one and then I do Shift D, you're going to see that's the real shape of the object. And then if I do D, you're going to see we have QGrid turned on for the object here. So you're going to definitely want to make sure you choose turn on dynamic subdivision, make Boolean mesh, and that'll go through and make your Boolean mesh. Again, if you want more information on Booleans in general, oh, I was going to show you guys. So here's where we went from ZBrush to Painter, and then we just painted up these little robot dudes. Got them in iRay. Oh, and we also threw them in Sketchfab as well. So you can throw those up on my Sketchfab page. This is an old fan art Cyber Demon thing that's on Sketchfab. Same process, just ZBrush really quickly. And this is just a concept sketch, so it's kind of loose. There's not a whole lot of really refined detail in there, but we do go through the Painter process, but we'll do that today too. Or tomorrow. I got about 30 minutes left. So also, if you go to my Pavlovich workshop on ZBrush, I do that on Tuesday mornings. And then my playlist is here. And in that playlist, go to ZBrush for Write What's New, and that'll take you through more Boolean options that we didn't cover. Okay, so when that's all done, we got our UMesh here. And so now this UMesh, if I go into polyframe mode, you're going to see we have a bunch of different subtools, and each one of these subtools represents a different start group that we had. So if I click on this one here, you're going to see, oh, looks like I had this one in my start group as well. We can go ahead and just hold down Control Shift, Alt, and then we could just do a split hidden. That's under your subtool split menu. And now when we look at this, you're going to see this is the real resolution and polygons that were created on this object. These polygroups were built in. This is our text that we put in there. It's just the real polygons, and it's creating just triangulation along the sides to make sure that these polygons all match up. So if we go out of polyframe mode, you're going to see it's a pretty clean result. Similar to a result if you were like bringing in assets from Fusion 360. Speaking of, I have a Fusion 360 quick start if you want to use Fusion 360 in addition to ZBrush. It's a really cool, fun CAD program. But this is a similar result. The difference is I can use these polygroups and even the geometry resulting from the union mesh if I wanted to modify this a little bit more. So anyway, we've got our whole union mesh here, and now it's just geometry that you can go in. You can dynamesh this stuff now if you want to add more detail, which is what we're doing here. You're going to see on this one, for example, I have this little back piece split off, and then I have my handle here. That was just a Boolean mesh that was making a slice line in here, and you're going to see it's tight enough to where you can't even really tell the difference. It's so it's such a clean slice in here. So let's go ahead and modify this. One way to do that, if I take this subtool and go into solo mode, you're going to see I do have polygroups here. If I go into my polygroup menu, which is way down here somewhere, and we go to group by normals, you're going to see we'll get a polygroup for the top, side, bottom, and back. So with that, what we can do is go into our ZRemesh options, geometry. This is why I use a custom menu. I don't like going over here. So the ZRemesh, if I use it a lot, I'll go to my custom menu. If I use it really a lot, I'll go into my hotkeys. But down here, we've got our ZRemesh. We're going to say keep groups, turn smooth groups down to 0. Target polygon count, we'll just do same, and we'll turn adaptive size down just a bit. And now what we can do is we can just ZRemesh this object, and we can there's a lot of different ways we can bevel this, but if we want to just work within our dynamic subdivisions, we can just hit D, and that'll just turn on dynamic subdivisions. You're going to see it just smooths those edges a little bit. Of course, you can crease those polygroups, do your smoothing like we've talked about before. But going to solo mode, now you're going to see it makes that mesh usable. And by usable, I mean we can go through here now, and if we want to get fancy, we can go, okay, I'm going to go hit X to go across that symmetry here. Let's do Shift D real quick. And then I can go into my Z modeler, and I can say I want to put in speed lines. Make our handle go faster. So I'm going to hold down Alt. Wait a minute. Let's see. Let's turn off LSIM. Let's do a quick mirror and weld. Okay, so I'm going to do a mirror across the X and then a mirror and weld. For some reason, it wasn't mirrored across the X-axis here, but now I hold down Alt. We can go ahead and put in our speed lines. I'm just kidding. I don't know what these things are. And then we'll go to QMesh polygroup all. And we just pull these in. And now when we hit D, we'll get that look kind of built in. So that's one way to do detail. If you wanted to just do sculpt detail, what you can do is you could have just left it. I mean, I prefer to ZRemesh my objects just to get a much nicer result in here. But you can just go in here. If we hit D, that'll go ahead and dynamically subdivide this thing. And then I can just dynamesh it. Now, before I dynamesh it, I'm going to want to make sure I apply those dynamic over here, dynamic apply, to make those real, that real geometry. If you don't do that, and I do D, it's like, oh, it looks really smooth. And I go over here to Dynamesh. Let's see, turn off project, turn off blur resolution. D, and we go over here and we hit Dynamesh. You're going to see it builds in the faceting. That's because it's not dynameshing the smooth result, it's dynameshing this faceted result. So what you want to do is hit apply, that'll make it real subdivisions, and then you can go in here to your Dynamesh, and your Dynamesh is over here in Geometry Dynamesh. We're going to turn off blur, we're going to turn off project, we're going to crank that resolution up, hit Dynamesh, no. There we go. So now we have a Dynamesh version of our object here. We're going to hit Control W, make that all one polygroup, and now you can just sculpt on this thing. Now, of course, you're going to want to make your resolution as high as you want to maintain your details. And now what we can do is, for example, we can hit B, C, and we'll go into this chisel brush. And what this is doing is taking a vector displacement alpha. You know it's vector displacement because it's got a 3D thing right here. We go more into vector displacement, obviously, on that link I sent you, the playlist for my YouTube channel, the Intro to ZBrush for R8 What's New. We talk more about that. And also in here, we have a really cool one I like, the Houdini in ZBrush. So we go in here, we go through and we shatter a dog, a poor puppy. But we also do Houdini vector displacement. So basically you can take the stuff into Houdini and you can just an arbitrary mesh here, and then you can take that into Houdini and apply a plane to it, and that way you can get the undercuts really quickly, and then export this back into ZBrush and use that as a vector displacement to just drag on to your mesh here. So this is a little bit of an easier process. Anyway, what vector displacement is, if you hit B, just to give you more examples, I'm going to go to this Chisel 3D here, and that's going to load up a bunch of these meshes. These meshes were all pulled from a plane. So if I go in here to this mouth one and I just pull, you're going to see it's going to insert a mouth. And the cool thing about vector displacement as opposed to just an alpha is we get undercuts. So if I do this one, for example, you're going to see the mesh goes out, around, and then back down. Now it's dependent on your resolution. So if I hit Control D, we'll just make this resolution a little bit more. You can see we get a nicer result. So this is an extreme one here. So you can just take this one. You're going to see it's just a forming out our shape here, and it's just taking that geometry that we have on our mesh and just displacing it based on that map. Now, if we go into hit B and then we go into chisel rect, you're going to see these are just converting these meshes to alphas. It's still useful, so you can go through here and select this one and then to pull that out, and then you can select this one and pull that out. You can also go into your brush menu here, and you can go to modifiers, and you can change your multi-mesh selector to say 1, and that will cycle through as you're pulling out. It's just going to cycle 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 through your meshes here. And you can also hold down Alt, but the thing about these ones is, if you choose this one for example, and we look at it, it's like got the little bars on here. If you go here, you're going to see there's no undercuts. It just goes, it pulls straight out from that. Still pretty useful. I have some of these converted. So we've got a brush here. Hard surface. So I basically took a bunch of hard surface alphas, converted them to meshes. So when I go to, say, vents, I took alphas, converted them to geometry, and now I can just cycle through, or I can hit the M key and just choose any one of these things. And we'll go ahead and drop that Z intensity down. And we'll hold down Alt, kind of push these things in. So you can just cycle through these things. Or again, we can turn on multi-mesh selector and turn it to 1. Or you can turn it to 2 to cycle backwards, or 3 to be random. And then you can just randomly go through and just start dialing in different hard surface alphas without having to go in here and do like import alpha, all that stuff. You can just really quickly start greebling out your objects with alphas. And that's in lieu of doing it through the Boolean method. So anyway, BC chisel brush here. And now we're using the chisel brush. Let's go ahead and choose a different point here. We'll choose that brush tip 8. And now we can chisel through. Now there's a couple caveats. Number one, I have pretty high resolution, and I also have it's subdivided here. I'm going to go ahead and just re-Dynamesh at a higher resolution. It's going to get rid of my subdivision level. There we go. So now we're using our chisel brush. Again, if you want more resolution, just hit Control D, and that'll subdivide your object up, like so. So it's a couple of things with this brush. If you want to go in a straight line, what you can do is start dragging your brush out, then hold down Shift. That'll give you a green line, which goes from, you know, whatever, how many degrees you want, and then you let go of Shift and it'll go down. Now you're going to see it didn't go down all the way to my object here, so I'm going to go to my brush. No, it's probably my stroke. Let's go to stroke here, and we'll go to, we'll open up, we don't need that. So lazy mouse is what we're looking for. Lazy snap we'll get to. Lazy radius is, I think, what we're looking for here. So we change this lazy radius down to a smaller number and then start dragging out, and then I let go. You're going to see it snaps all the way down to the bottom. So just turn your lazy radius down. Basically what your lazy radius does is put a little rubber band behind your object, so you get a smoother curve. The longer that is, the longer the rubber band, or the higher the number is, the longer that rubber band's going to be. But if we go over here to our lazy radius and bring that down, and then again start dragging, and then hold down Shift, and then it will go ahead, oops. So start dragging, hold down Shift, and then let go. It'll snap all the way down to the bottom of your thing here. So this is the chisel brush. You're going to see if I don't let go of my stroke, I can cross over perfectly, and everything looks great. However, if I want to do like a straight line to a curved line, and I start dragging down, I go straight, and then it's like, okay, I want to do a curved line now, and I curve this out, see how it kind of does a crappy thing? Or if I go across here and it cuts across, I'm like, oh, I want to cut across here now. See how it kind of mangles your mesh? There's a couple things we need to do here. Number one, we have our mesh here. Let's go to morph target. We're going to store a morph target. And now as we drag through, it'll of course drag through here. And then if I drag through again, it'll go ahead and meet up. If you want to stop, let's see, undo. We got a morph target stored. So if you want to go, like I said, start dragging and then hold down Shift and make a straight line, and then start from the end of this thing, you're going to see by default, let's go ahead, make a line and then start from this end line. It'll go ahead and, it should go ahead and snap because we have our lazy snap turned on, but we might want to turn our lazy radius back up. There we go. So you're going to see I don't even need to be that close to the end of this in order for it to just snap from it. So see how I'm way over here and I start dragging? It's going to snap to that distance here. Pretty cool. So you can really quickly just go through here and just make a straight line, and then make a straight line, and make a curved line. And then you can also pull through because we have morph targets turned on. You can also change your Z intensity if you want to, you know, not cut in so much, like so. We'll go ahead and leave that up just a bit. Now, you're also going to notice that my brush is it's going from, like, you can make it go from thick to thin to thick here, which is kind of a problem if you want to go like, I want to cut in this detail. You can also hold down Alt and bubble it out. By default, it's on Z sub. So you can pull in one, and then you want to go from here, and it's like, wait, I wanted those to match up. Two ways you can go about this. Number one, you can use your mouse, and when you use your mouse in ZBrush, it just turns everything on, or up to the max here. So we can tap S to get our draw size in here. And we can just start dragging in here, and then start dragging, and then start dragging, and then start dragging. And it'll be great. But using your mouse is sometimes a pain. So what I'm going to do with this brush selected, go down here to Brush, and then we're going to go to our tablet pressure. And for this brush, you're going to see Z intensity is already maxed out, but Z size isn't. So if I go over here to the Z size and I drag this all the way up, now when I use my brush, it's like I'm using a mouse. Or if I'm using my tablet, it's just maxing it out. So it's not great for brushes like H-Polish. You're going to want H-Polish tablet pressure because that thing really needs tablet pressure. But for this type of brush, I would just go ahead and just max that out. So now you can go through here and add these details. So what I did for the back of this gun in particular is I kind of positioned my camera here, and I turned off, did I turn off X-Symmetry? I don't remember. I start dragging, hold down Shift, and then I hold down Alt. And then I let go of Shift, and then I just pulled this straight across here. Although I may have had X-Symmetry turned off. So I go turn off X-Symmetry because I know I'm going to be dragging a straight line. I just don't want to double it up and get artifacts. So I'm going to hold down Shift, hold down Alt, hold on. There we go. Let go of Shift. And that'll pull across. And then all I have to do is do a quick mirror and weld across the X-Symmetry. Let's go ahead and delete lower. It's not going to let me mirror that if I have subdivisions here. Mirror and weld across the X. And that'll mirror it the wrong way. So if I want to do the long side, where are we oriented? Oh, you know what? I'm looking from the back of the weapon. So what I can do to fix that, all I can do is go to Deformations, Mirror across the X, and then Mirror and Weld across the X-axis. And then I'll go ahead and get both of those. In this particular case, it might be easier. Oh, you know what? There's one more thing we can talk about. Another thing we can probably do, I think, is we can just drag out a straight line here. And then if we want to trying to remember if we do, so if we go into the stroke menu here, I didn't do this, but it probably would have made more sense. So we got the stroke menu here. You're going to see under modifiers, you have replay last and replay last relative is shift 1. If you do replay last with 1, it's just going to replay your stroke over and over again. If you do replay last relative, if you move your cursor down and then do shift 1, it'll go ahead and replay your last stroke relative to your previous one. So let's go ahead and let's do our starting point here. Shift 1, shift 1, shift 1, and now I can do our quick mirror, oops, delete lower, mirror, mirror and weld. And now those are all a little more evenly spaced. So to explain that a little bit better, let's just grab something. I need to put this initialize menu and unify F to frame. Okay, so I'm just going to go ahead and subdivide the surface up a bit. And then again, we're just going to use our standard brush here. And for the standard brush, I'm going to change it to a drag rect stroke. And we'll go ahead and do an alpha, and Z intensity will crank up. So as I'm dragging this out, and we'll change our focal shift down. So I can drag that out and make that shape here. So if I hit 1, that's just going to keep replaying that last stroke right there, so you can make it more intense. But if I drag this out and then do shift 1, it's going to replay that relative to where my brush is. That's all it's doing. So that might be a little faster way for you to get those kind of results here. Let's see, Mike, do you know of any simple guide on how to configure the different GoZ apps? I don't, and I don't use GoZ that much, but GoZ should walk you through when you hit GoZ. It should by default walk you through, and you can also reset GoZ. Is that export visible R reset? Yeah, so if you hit this R key over here, that'll reset your selected GoZ application. And then it'll walk you through if you hit Go Z again. It should walk you through independently of like, okay, I want to go to Z to Maya, Modo, Max, Photoshop, Houdini, all that stuff. But I don't have a guide on that specifically, unfortunately. What's the difference between normal subdivision and dynamic? Yeah, Narek is right. Dynamic is just a preview, and that's why I really like it. Again, if I go to, we're just kind of messing with this one. Oops. So let's go ahead and just initialize this one back to a Q cube here. Oh, come on. Delete lower. Or you know what? Let's just drag this undo slider all the way back. There we go. So the reason I like this is if I go in here, for example, and I take these ones and QMesh this out, and then this one and QMesh it out, and then these two and QMesh it out, or take these two, and you know what? Let's just do QMesh flat island, and we'll just go QMesh, 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 QMesh. And if I want to take this one in, we'll do QMesh single poly. We'll just pop these things through. So this is the shape I want, right? So when I hit D, that is giving me my dynamic preview. I can go through here and use my crease tolerance here to get the shape, and then we can use our crease level of say 3, smooth subdiv of 4, and this is the look that we're going to get. So as we continue modifying this, for example, if we go to this polygon here and we do bridge, connected polys, Bezier curve, specified curvature of 100, resolution of 8, turn on line to normal just in case, triangle sides. We can go through here and just add a little curve here. And then again, I'm just going to do my crease tolerance here. So we're getting the automatic bevels built in, but we can always do Shift D, and that's just a preview. If we do Control D, we'll get the same result. Control D, Control D, Control D, Control D, and you're going to see as I go up to subdivision level 5, it went to smooth subdiv of 4, subdivided up 3 times, uncreased everything, and then subdivided 1 more time. So we get the same look. But if it's like, okay, now I want to extrude this face, I can't anymore because we have subdivisions on here. Or if I want to insert a mesh, it's not going to let me. Let's see, Alt E. Or insert a ring, it's not going to get. It's going to yell at me. Or if I want to QMesh any of these faces in here, QMesh a poly, it's not going to let me because it has subdivision levels. You can freeze subdivisions and do it, but it's just better to just have this as dynamic. So if I go back, so I can just do Shift D, turn that off, and then I can go over here to like QMesh single poly. Oops. Here, and you can even do it with the preview on, so you can hit D to preview, and then you can just QMesh these up. If you're just doing hard surface, so for example, if you're just doing like boxy models and not adding things that are curved, instead of doing smooth subdivision, I would turn that down, or you can keep it up too, but I would do Q grid. What that's going to do is give you bevels on every single edge here. So as you're going through and modeling, you can just really quickly just pull these things up. Here, let's go ahead and pull this up, and we'll go ahead and we'll do, let's say, bridge, 2 polys. We'll bridge this one to this one here. I'm gonna go ahead and bridge through there, and it's keeping nice bevels around every single corner. So as long as you're only QMeshing out in like a boxy form here, and you can also just drag through, and it'll get rid of that, and get rid of that, and get rid of that, or whatever. You know the basics of QMesh here. And also QMesh is another thing. So if I go through here, you're going to see it's going to automatically snap and then give you a little bit of leeway on this side. You can change that to like a line half step, so you can snap it all the way up. And then back here, you can just do a half. So on this side here, we can do half step. And if you've done that once, again, like you do this and then you want to do a half step down, just go over here and just click, and that'll just do that exact same QMesh here, the exact same operation. So you get that kind of look. So QMesh is very cool. If you do an extrude, so QMesh will snap automatically. If you do an extrude single poly here, it'll extrude out, but then it's not going to connect to it. So that's another option. If you hit Shift D, that's going to give you the result of your actual polygons here. So now if you hit D, you're going to see, oh yeah, those aren't connected. And the other cool thing about keeping it dynamic is if I don't like this, I can go into my properties, go to say Q grid. I can change the coverage on the fly. There we go. I can make it wider, I can make it thinner. I can go to chamfer to go ahead and round that out. And then I can turn my Q grid up. And we get my coverage. We got chamfer turned on. We can turn bevel off and just have a chamfer, have them both on. And you can also have smooth subdivisions on here as well. So it'll give you a smooth and the Q grid stuff, so you can kind of play with both of those. But that's the difference between having the dynamic, which is far more flexible, and then having it actually on there. Do you test a new system in stupid situations, like how many millions of polygons you can have on one subtool and still be able to sculpt with an alpha? I haven't. I did do, let me see, I did do a performance test. Are we up to a point here? We talked about the chisel brush. I think we're almost done, guys. So I'm getting up to where I'm getting to the point where I have to leave, unfortunately, but preparing for chisel brush functionality we talked about. Lazy mouse and snapping. Yeah, we're done. So next week we'll do the whole take the gun into Painter. And it'll just be quick and dirty. It's not going to be like, oh, retopologize this thing really nicely and split our UV shells based on the other stuff. I have another program we'll use for that. But just for the quick and dirty stuff, I'll do it in ZBrush. We'll take it into Painter and we'll paint it up. I'll do that next Thursday. But I haven't done that. I did go to Preferences. You can go to Performance and you could do Test Multi-Threading. And it should be, the ZBrush seems to be working just fine. So ZBrush is very CPU intensive and very RAM intensive. So that's my multi-threading performance, 662%. So for example, if I do Control-Shift-Escape here, you're going to see we're using the AMD Ryzen Threadripper 1950 NAX 16-core processor. And for the PC here, let's see, we've got 128 gig of RAM on here, so that helps quite a bit when it comes to applications like Keyshot and ZBrush. If you want more info on that, you probably are, some of you are probably watching this on Twitch. If you go to my Twitch channel here, Twitch, and you scroll down, you're going to see, here's my hardware specifications. Also my weekly live stream schedule. Here's Twitch TV on PavWork, Thursdays 4 a.m. to 6 a.m. PST. And then on Pixelogic 4 a.m. to 6 a.m. PST, but I think I'm going to miss next Tuesday. But there's more information on my hardware setup. I'm swapping these monitors out. These are the Samsung monitors. I'm getting some weird flickering, so I'm going to grab the 34-inch Dells, and I'll swap those out. So that's going to change, but everything else is still. How can I convert a mesh to an alpha to use with that brush? You can, converting a mesh to an alpha is just, so let's see. What I would do is I would go to Chisel 3D. Let's go ahead and change that to a matte cap here. It's not going to let us. Let's go. Preferences, initialize. Document, range, 0. There we go. So if you want to, I would go into Polymesh 3D here, go into matte cap gray, and hit B, and you're going to see we have this chisel rect brush. I would start with the chisel rect brush and the chisel rect settings just because it's a brush that's already set up the way I want my brush to work, but I would then go in here to brush clone, so we're working on a clone of that brush, and then go to create, and then just hit delete mesh. So you're going to see that number is going down as we go. So now we just have an empty chisel rect brush. So what I can do is I can take this star, I can go to brush, create, it's actually been a while since I did this. Nanomesh, multi-alpha brush. So I'm going to do create multi-alpha brush, but that's going to throw just this one subtool up there. If I do brush from mesh to mesh, from mesh, there we go. You can do either one, but it looks like multi-alpha brushes if you have multiple subtools. So in the subtool menu, if I go to insert a cube, insert a cylinder, insert a ring. So I've got all these subtools here. So if I go to create multi-alpha brush, that's going to take all of my subtools here and create an alpha brush from them. So if I do, again, this, we'll just take this one here, and we'll subdivide this up. You're going to see I can go to my ring here, and the ring is positioned so that it was towards the camera, so it's just going to drag out this, and it looks like, oh, I'm dragging out a ring, but you go to side, it's just going straight back because it's not a vector displacement. But that's how you create brushes from mesh. So if you wanted to convert something, so if I go in here to my alpha menu, so what I ended up doing is, for example, I have, I guess I don't even have them here. Oh, there we go. Industrial? No. Let's go in here to military. So I've got a bunch of military alphas. So if I wanted to use these alphas on my mesh as they are, what I'd have to do is like go to my standard brush, clone this off, go to my drag rect, grab an alpha in here, like, oh, I want to do a star, and then also change my focal shift. So this will be my alpha brush, right? In order to get another alpha in there, I go to my alpha menu, I double click these, and if it's a 16-bit grayscale, it'll go ahead and put this arrow in here. But then if I want to change that out, I've got to go back in here, grab this one, and then go and grab that one. Instead, I would rather have all these shapes into one mesh. So in order to do that, I would create a subtool for each one of these shapes, and then do create multi-alpha brush. If you don't want to convert these things to geometry, what you can do is you can take this alpha. Let's go over here, and I've done this before on my channel too. But before I leave, yeah, I got about 3 minutes. So we'll go to alpha here. We go to make 3D. We've got this arrow selected. I'm going to turn off double-sided. We'll change our resolution to like maybe 256. Mesh smooth, we can turn that down just a little bit. Depth doesn't really matter that much. And then we'll just hit make 3D. And now when we drag this out, you're going to see we've turned that alpha into a 3D mesh. So we can just continue to do that. If I go over here to this alpha, and we'll just do this down arrow here, and we'll hit make 3D. There we go. So we got these two here. And just for fun, let's grab another alpha. Let's say we want this little stepped alpha here. We'll hit make 3D. So we've got all these different objects in here that we can convert to alphas now, that were from alphas to geometry. And now we can, if we go in here to append, we can grab this arrow one here, we can grab this one here. So now that all three of these are in here, we can go to brush, create multi-alpha brush, and now we've got all three of these in here. So as I cycle through them, we're grabbing these alphas, and then we can go back to, say, just a sphere. Turn off light Boolean mode. Hit Control D to get some resolution. Looks like I divided it up a bunch. Okay, there we go. So we can, oops, we need to make that polymesh 3D, duh. Sorry. Make it a polymesh 3D, subdivide it up, and then we can drag out, select it, there we go. We can drag out this alpha, we can select this one, drag out this alpha, we can select this one, drag out this alpha. Or like I said before, because this is technically an insert mesh brush, you can go into your brush properties, modifiers, change your multi-mesh selector to 1, and then as you're dragging out, you can also crank up your Z intensity, hold down Alt if you want to, and just cycle through those. So that's how you can have multiple alphas on one brush converted from single alphas. For backface mode, default for all brushes, you can set up a macro that'll go through, shoot, I have to leave. That you can set up a macro, so as you load up ZBrush, your startup macro can be turn on backface masking for all brushes. I wouldn't do it for all of them though. I would, like for the move brush, if you turn on backface masking, auto masking, backface for your move brush, you can kind of do some weird stuff on thin meshes. Seems to be okay now, but move is one of the, yeah, it starts doing sort of that kind of weird stepping here. So your move brush, I wouldn't do backface masking, but you could do a macro to do it for specific brushes in your startup, or just have a button in here that turns on backface masking for all of those. Oops, sorry. Yeah, and the Z Startup Master as, where do they go? AUSE, A-U-S-E. AUSE says, I agree, Z Startup Master might have something for that, so Z plugin here. If you go to, do I have it on here? Does it repeat it? Z Startup Master I don't have included, but like we said before, you can go in here and do Pixel Electric downloads, download center. Scroll down, oops, download center, ZBrush plugins, and grab the Z Startup Master way down here at the bottom. And that that plugin will allow you to kind of set up some interesting stuff for you. Cool. And for the rest of these questions, I'll just go ahead and add them to my streaming topics because unfortunately I have to leave. Anatomy images you can share to know of any good sites. I can't find complete reference images. For anatomy, I prefer to use scan data. You know what? I don't know if I have any of those loaded on here. Reference library. I'll have to see. I'll have to bring over my reference library. I'm not sure if I have it on here. That's just better reference for me. For anatomy is just 1024 3D. Scans is a good one. You can get écorché, you can get male and female base bodies, you can get a whole bunch of just scan data of people for anatomy. If I export something with UV, sometimes all my polygons UVs within a shell are separated. UVs within a shell. That one I'm not sure on. You're going through all the stuff I would have done, which is, make sure groups is off and merges on in the export options, which is down here. Now this is for the polygons, I believe. For the UVs themselves, try FBX exporting. I don't have very many problems when I use FBX export. OBJ export, I kind of have, it hit or miss. FBX is a lot more stable for me, so maybe try FBX if you haven't already. Do you use hotkey crease when using dynamic subdivisions? Not that much. I usually end up using this crease tolerance, but I do have a hotkey assigned to, just give me something here. Cube 3D. I do have a hotkey for crease when I go in here and I grab a piece and I just do whoa, okay. My hotkey is set to something that NVIDIA GeForce wants access to. Screw off, Alt F1. I need to fix that. So my hotkey for crease has been taken over by stupid GeForce, but it would crease those open edges here. That's what my hotkey is for, is that one here. So then when I do dynamic, well, it's not going to do much there, but you can see it creased. Cool. Well, thanks for showing up, everybody. I'm going to go ahead. Any questions I have left over, I'll go ahead and copy my streaming topics, but I'm going to go ahead and head out. So see you guys next Thursday, maybe next Tuesday, but I'm not sure. If you go to zbrushlive.com, it'll have my schedule. So see you later.